Back in 2025, 250,000 tech workers lost their jobs.
Yeah, just a massive, massive wave.
Right. And pretty much everyone immediately blamed artificial intelligence. Like, that was the headline everywhere.
Uh-huh.
But the data shows AI was actually innocent in, what, about 95% of those cases?
Exactly. It was a convenient excuse.
Duh.
But today,
Yeah.
today the exact opposite is happening.
Right.
The machines have actually arrived. They really are taking over specific coding functions. And the traditional entry-level data engineer is facing, well, a massive structural collapse.
It's wild to see.
It is a terrifying shift to watch in real time. I mean, we are seeing major players make drastic moves. Amazon cutting 16,000 corporate employees. Meta putting 15,000 roles under review explicitly, and they said this explicitly, to fund AI initiatives.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and Dell shedding 11,000 jobs in a single quarter. It creates this very loud, very intimidating narrative that the human element in data engineering is just being systematically erased.
And look, if you are listening to this right now, whether you are an aspiring junior data engineer, or maybe somebody looking to pivot into the tech field, or honestly, just a professional trying to future-proof your career, that narrative is completely paralyzing.
Oh, absolutely. It's terrifying.
But for this deep dive, we are going to look past the panic. We have a genuinely fascinating piece of source material today. It's an article from datapro.news by Samuel Williams, and it's titled, "Is AI Eating Data Engineering Jobs?"
A very timely question.
It really is. So our mission today is to break down exactly what is happening to early career roles right now. We're going to focus heavily on how you can adapt and thrive in an industry where the ground is quite literally shifting beneath your feet.
Yeah, and to understand the future of those junior roles and to really figure out the survival roadmap for you guys listening, we have to start by separating the AI hype from the actual economic reality.
Right.
Because the headline numbers we just mentioned, they are real, but the mechanics behind them are completely different today than they were just 12 months ago.
Yeah, the source material makes this really crucial distinction between the layoffs that happened last year in 2025 and what is happening right now in the first quarter of 2026. Because last year, the story was that AI was destroying everything. But you're saying that was basically a myth.
It was largely a myth, yes. If we look at the layoffs across 2025, which was somewhere between, I think, 123,000 and 245,000 tech jobs lost.
Just brutal number.
Right. But researchers dug into the underlying causes for those, and they found that only about 5% of those cuts were genuinely, directly due to AI automation.
Wait, only 5%?
Just 5%.
Then what on earth was causing the other 95% of those massive layoffs if it wasn't the robots taking over?
Honestly, it was a massive financial hangover.
A hangover,
Yeah. Analysts concluded that the vast majority of those 2025 cuts were simply corrections from aggressive pandemic-era overhiring. We are talking about massive tech firms that had ballooned their headcounts by like 25 to 50% beyond what was actually sustainable for their revenue models.
Okay, let me unpack this. So it's basically like blaming a brand new robot vacuum for your house being incredibly messy, when the reality is you just invited way too many people to the party the night before.
That is a brilliant way to put it.
You're pointing at the vacuum saying, oh, it's disrupting everything.
Yeah.
But really, you're just cleaning up your own mess.
That captures the dynamic perfectly. The source actually cites a Harvard Business Review investigation from January 2026 that looked into this exact phenomenon. They found that companies were laying off workers because of AI's potential, not its actual performance.
Wow, so they were just guessing.
Basically, they used AI as a smokescreen. I mean, think about the psychology of a CEO on an earnings call, right?
Okay.
Instead of telling your investors, oh, we grossly miscalculated our growth projections and hired way too many people, you tell them, we are proactively restructuring to become a lean, AI-driven enterprise of the future. Oh, that sounds so much better to shareholders.
Exactly. It signals forward-thinking strategy while completely obscuring a very mundane correction of past financial excesses.
But, and this is a big Butt Williams article, hits us with a hard truth about right now.
Yes, it does.
The party is over, the house is mostly empty, and that robot vacuum actually is starting to clean out specific rooms. The trend line in Q1 of 2026 has drastically shifted from that 5% number.
It has shifted dramatically. So in the first quarter of 2026, 20.4% of all tech layoffs were explicitly attributed to AI.
20.4, that's a massive jump.
It's huge. Andy Challenger from the executive coaching firm Challenger, Gray, and Christmas, he noted that companies are no longer just using AI as an excuse. They are actively shifting their operational budgets toward AI investments at the direct expense of human jobs.
Right.
And the key detail here is that they are specifically seeing AI replace actual day-to-day coding functions. So if you're listening to this and wondering if the threat is real, the answer is yes. AI wasn't the engine behind the last wave of cuts, but it is absolutely the engine behind the current one.
Without a doubt.
Which brings us to the day-to-day reality of the junior data engineer. The article points out that data engineering itself isn't disappearing, right? But it is undergoing this severe structural metamorphosis.
Right.
So what does that actually look like on the ground for someone starting out?
To see the metamorphosis, we have to look at what a junior data engineer actually used to do all day just 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
The traditional entry-level role involved a lot of handcrafting ETL pipelines.
ETL, which stands for extract, transform, and load.
Exactly. For anyone unfamiliar, it's basically the grunt work of data plumbing.
Yeah.
You pull raw, messy data from one source, you write scripts to clean it up and format it, and then you load it into a central database.
Right.
It also meant writing bespoke data ingestion scripts and literally sitting there babysitting scheduled batch jobs to make sure they didn't break overnight.
Yeah. God, it sounds incredibly tedious.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the repetitive, mechanical, heavy lifting that you traditionally gave to the new persons so they could slowly learn how the plumbing of the organization worked.
But here is the problem for the junior engineer today. AI-assisted tooling is exceptionally good at pattern matching and writing boilerplate code.
Oh, sure.
It can now handle almost all of that process-heavy, repetitive work. It doesn't need to learn the plumbing. It already knows the syntax for thousands of different data integrations.
Yeah.
And because of that, we are seeing what the article describes as a total talent pipeline collapse.
Wait, let me push back on that because that makes zero sense for a company's long-term survival.
How so?
Well, if you cut off the bottom rung of the ladder and stop hiring juniors to do the grunt work, where do your senior engineers come from in 5 years? Are these companies just shooting themselves in the foot down the line?
You would think so. But companies are operating in pure survival mode right now. They are prioritizing immediate efficiency over long-term talent cultivation. This is the difference between a cyclical downturn and a structural change. In a cyclical downturn, hiring slows down, but the pathway to a career remains the same.
You just have to wait it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what is happening right now is structural compression. The lower rungs of the career ladder haven't just gotten slippery, they have been completely sawed off.
Sawed off entirely.
Yes. Organizations are telling researchers that they have open entry-level positions, but they simply cannot sell them. And it isn't a lack of applicants.
Obviously, yeah.
It's because the baseline definition of what entry-level means has risen astronomically.
So they don't want someone who just knows the theory of how a data pipeline works anymore. They want more.
Much more. They expect you to arrive AI fluent on day one.
Wow.
They are explicitly looking for graduates and juniors who can demonstrate immediate proficiency with agentic workflows and LLM-integrated tooling.
Okay, let's pause and clarify those terms for the listener, because that really is the secret sauce here. An LLM, or large language model, is basically the brain like ChatGPT. It understands language and code. But an agentic workflow is when you give that brain a set of digital hands and let it work autonomously.
That's a great way to put it.
Instead of you prompting an AI line by line, you give an AI agent a broad goal like monitor this database and fix any formatting errors. And it creates its own step-by-step plan and executes it without you holding its hand.
That is the perfect distinction.
Yeah.
And if you can't show that you know how to build and manage those autonomous AI agents to construct an ETL pipeline in a fraction of the time it would take to hand code it, well, the door is going to remain closed.
Man, this completely changes the game for how you get hired.
Completely.
If you are building an entry-level portfolio right now, you cannot just show up with a basic Python script you wrote to clean a data set. That was impressive in 2022. Today, that just gets your resume tossed.
Straight in the trash.
To adapt, your portfolio needs to show you actively directing AI. You need to show them a custom AI agent you build that automatically cleans the database, logs its own errors, and, emails a summary to the marketing team.
Yes.
You have to prove you can manage the machine, not just type the code.
It is a profound shift in professional identity, but this structural compression at the bottom creates a very strange dynamic at the top.
What do you mean?
Well, while entry-level roles evaporate, the article highlights something called the seniority paradox.
The seniority paradox.
Okay, Senior data engineers are quietly being rehired, brought back on massive contracts, and retained at huge premiums.
I am confused by that. I really am.
Yeah.
Because if AI is so brilliant at writing pipelines and doing all this autonomous work, why are companies desperately throwing money at human senior engineers?
Because of the massive hidden cost of all that AI-generated code.
Ah,
The technical term for this is technical debt. And globally, analysts estimate there are currently 61 billion workdays worth of technical debt circulating in the tech ecosystem.
61 billion workdays.
Yes.
Okay, for listeners who might not be familiar with the term, technical debt is basically the cost of taking shortcuts in your coding. It's like slapping duct tape on a leaky pipe inside your wall to fix it quickly, knowing full well you'll eventually have to tear open the entire wall to fix it properly.
Exactly.
But 61 billion workdays of that sounds catastrophic. Why is AI causing so much of it?
Because an AI doesn't leave a trail of logical human thought. It just predicts the next line of code based on statistical patterns it has seen before.
Right.
So yes, the AI can produce data workflows incredibly fast, and yes, they are usually functional in the short term, but they are also frequently fragile and highly opaque. It's a total black box.
Oh, I see.
So when an AI-generated pipeline inevitably breaks, there is no human reasoning to trace back. It's just a wall of generated text, which makes it an absolute nightmare to troubleshoot and audit.
Okay, so the AI is an incredibly fast, over-enthusiastic apprentice. It can frame out 10 houses at lightning speed.
Right.
But companies desperately need a master architect to walk through those houses, look at the blueprints, and make sure the plumbing actually connects to the water main, and that the roof isn't going to cave in the second it rains.
That is exactly the dynamic driving the market. Someone has to understand the underlying architecture well enough to validate what the machine is producing.
Validate, not right.
Precisely. Because the AI doesn't inherently understand business context. If a human doesn't define the objectives with crystal clarity, the AI might build a pipeline that is lightning fast, but completely useless for the company's actual revenue goals.
And the market is heavily rewarding those human architects, right? The article notes that 72% of executives surveyed in 2026 now view data engineers not as back-office IT support, but as integral strategic business partners.
It's a massive rebrand for the profession. It's a paradigm shift, and it's accompanied by very real financial compensation. Data engineers with 5 or more years of experience in complex areas, things like schema design, which is essentially designing the overarching blueprint of how a database is organized,
Right.
or distributed systems, where you make multiple computers act as one cohesive unit, they are commanding massive premiums.
How massive are we talking?
Well, if you are an AI specialized engineer, you're earning on average 14.2% more than your generalist peers.
Okay, that's significant.
And if you have deep cross-domain AI fluency,
Yeah.
meaning you can apply AI strategy to different sectors like finance or healthcare, that wage premium can reach up to 56%.
56% more just for understanding how to strategically deploy these tools. That is wild.
It really is.
So if you are a junior listening to this, the adaptation strategy is crystal clear. Your goal is no longer to be the fastest coder. The AI will always be faster. Your goal is to become the best validator. You have to pivot your focus away from memorizing syntax and fiercely cultivate your architectural judgment.
Absolutely.
You have to learn how to be the person who defines the rules for the machine.
It is entirely about moving from execution to oversight. But, that transition naturally leads to a fundamental economic question about the future of the field.
Right, because if the apprentice builds all the houses, eventually the town is full.
Exactly.
If AI makes building pipelines so incredibly fast and cheap and we only need a few senior architects to oversee them, won't we just run out of pipelines to build? Like, why should you bet your career on data engineering if the well is going to run dry?
You'd think the demand would dry up, but economics tells us the exact opposite usually happens.
Really?
Yeah. Economists who study technology transitions see a pattern repeat over and over again called the Jevons paradox.
The Jevons paradox.
Right. The Jevons paradox observes that when a new technology makes a resource far more efficient to use, it actually increases the overall consumption of that resource rather than reducing it.
Let me see if I've got this. The classic example is energy-efficient lighting.
Yes.
When the LED light bulb was invented, making lighting incredibly cheap and efficient, People didn't just use less electricity to light their one room.
Right, they didn't just save money and stop there.
They decided to light up their whole house, the driveway, the garden, the street.
Yeah.
Because it was cheaper, they consumed exponentially more of it.
Exactly. Now apply that economic rule to AI and data engineering. Because AI dramatically reduces the cost, the time, and the complexity required to build a data pipeline, organizations aren't just building the same number of pipelines faster,
They're building more of them.
significantly more of them. Projects that were previously deemed way too expensive or too niche to justify human engineering hours are suddenly entirely feasible.
Because you just spin up an AI agent in the cloud to do the heavy lifting. So a mid-sized company that used to only be able to afford 3 core data pipelines can suddenly afford to build 300 of them to track every tiny metric in their business.
Precisely. And the source material has the hard evidence to back this up. GitHub reported a 35% increase in new software projects in 2026. General website creation is up 40%.
Wow.
We are seeing a massive, rapid expansion of the digital surface area.
So the town isn't getting full. The AI apprentice is making buildings so cheap that the town is turning into a sprawling metropolis.
Yes, I love that analogy. And what happens when an organization suddenly has 100 times as many data pipelines as they had 3 years ago?
Things break.
They need more robust infrastructure, they have exponentially more complex data governance requirements, and critically, they have an even greater need for skilled humans who can design, oversee, and strategically evolve that massive new web of data.
Okay, but hang on. If I'm just spinning up AI agents in the cloud to build these hundreds of new pipelines, I could do that from my couch in my pajamas. So why does the article spend so much time talking about geography? Shouldn't remote work and AI make physical location completely irrelevant for a junior looking for a job?
It matters because the types of companies buying this labor are fundamentally shifting. The article calls this the geography of disruption.
Geography of disruption.
The projected winners for net tech job growth in 2026 are not the traditional pure tech strongholds in Silicon Valley.
Interesting.
Texas is forecast to gain over 32,000 tech positions this year. California is only projected to gain 16,949.
Wait, really? Texas is basically doubling California's tech job growth.
It is, and if we look at the metropolitan level, Dallas and New York City are leading the games over San Francisco.
Wow.
This reflects a massive structural shift in the global economy. The pure-play tech hubs companies that just build software for software's sake are actually contracting.
Okay.
Where the explosive growth is happening is in legacy industries. Finance, telecommunications, global logistics, healthcare. These massive traditional industries are aggressively embedding AI into their aging data infrastructure.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Like a startup in Silicon Valley just builds apps, but a massive logistics company in Dallas is moving billions of dollars of physical freight around the world.
Right.
They suddenly realize AI can optimize their entire global supply chain, but only if someone can translate their real-world freight logic into data logic for the AI to understand.
That translation piece is everything. These legacy industries desperately need engineers who understand both the technical data layer and the specific business domain.
The domain expertise.
Exactly. They need a cross-functional translator. The AI doesn't know how global shipping regulations work or how healthcare compliance laws dictate data storage. A human has to know that.
So if you are sending your resume to the exact same Silicon Valley software startups you would have targeted 5 years ago, you are fishing in a shrinking pond. The ultimate cheat code for a junior right now is domain expertise. Don't just learn data engineering. Combine your data engineering skills with a deep understanding of a specific business sector, like supply chain logistics or healthcare finance.
That's the way in.
Because if you can be the person who understands the AI tooling and understands why the business needs the data in the first place, you become incredibly valuable in these booming hybrid markets.
That is the exact formula for adapting and thriving in 2026. The jobs being displaced by AI are purely execution heavy.
Right.
But the jobs being created reward architectural judgment and cross-functional fluency. You have to be able to define what correct looks like in a world where the machine is doing the actual typing.
Okay, let's bring this all together. What is the core truth we are pulling from Samuel Williams' research?
Jeff.
AI is undeniably eating process-heavy jobs.
Yes.
The days of getting hired just to write basic ingestion scripts and babysit batch jobs are over. But this is not an extinction event for data engineers.
It's not an extinction event. It is an intense timeline compression.
Timeline compression.
Yeah. The journey from being a junior pipeline builder to a strategic data architect used to take 10 years of incremental, slow steps. Now, that evolution has to happen in your first 2 years.
That's
It
intense.
requires deliberate action. You must actively invest in your AI tooling literacy, and you have to consciously leapfrog the old lower rungs of the ladder.
It's literally a story of natural selection in the job market.
Hmm.
If you try to play the game by 2023's rules, relying on basic coding syntax, you will be deeply frustrated.
You'll be left behind.
But if you position yourself correctly, if you build a portfolio showing you can manage autonomous agents, and if you combine that with deep domain expertise in the legacy industry, there is immense, highly compensated opportunity waiting for you.
It ultimately requires a fundamental shift in your professional identity. You can no longer view yourself as a coder who takes orders. You must view yourself as a strategic partner who manages digital labor.
Which leaves us with a final lingering question for you to mull over as you plan your next career move. If AI continues to completely automate the execution and coding of data pipelines, and human value shifts entirely toward architectural strategy and domain expertise, will the junior data engineer of 2030 even write code at all?
That is the million-dollar question.
Or will your first job in tech look more like a corporate diplomat, continuously negotiating with a team of AI agents to get the right business outcomes? Keep questioning your assumptions, start building those AI-managed portfolios, and thank you for joining us on this deep dive.